We're counting down now to Alannah Myles, a rock and roll newcomer who first tried recording in a big city studio. But when that didn't work, she took her songs to a lonely log cabin 5 hours from the nearest town. Details coming up.
Casey's Top 40. Casey's Top 40.
We're counting down the hottest hits in the nation on Casey's Top 40. I'm Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to a rock and roll newcomer who first tried recording in a big city studio. But when that didn't work, she took her songs deep into the wilderness instead. Canadian singer Alannah Myles is a rough and ready rocker with pioneer blood in her veins. Though she was born in Toronto, she says she was actually raised in a place called Buckhorn, a remote community in northern Ontario, 5 hours from the nearest town. Alannah grew up working on the family ranch there, and she'd spend her days riding horses and helping her family around the ranch. She even worked with them to build a real log cabin, a cabin that she made her very own. Well, years later, when Alannah tried to launch her career in the big city of Toronto, she went into a state-of-the-art professional studio to make a demo. But as much as she tried, she just couldn't get the feel she wanted. To her ears, the music sounded flat and uninspired. So she decided she needed to get back to her roots, and that meant returning to the family ranch in Buckhorn. Well, every day once she got there, she'd ride horses across the plains of northern Canada, creating songs in her head out of the things that she saw and the things that she felt. And then, with the help of a couple of friends, she hauled in some simple recording gear. And in a short time, they turned Alannah's old log cabin into a makeshift recording studio. Alannah spent hours on end in that cabin, surrounded by sights and sounds and smells that she had loved as a child. In that comfortable, homey atmosphere, she recorded 3 songs for a demo. This time, she loved them and sent copies out to record companies. Well, before too long, one of those companies got in touch with Alannah and offered her a contract sight unseen. Alannah says it was all because of that buckhorn sound in her demo, the feeling of being back in the lonely, rough, untamed land of her childhood. Nowadays, even though she lives back in the big city of Toronto, Alannah still likes to visit her childhood home in Buckhorn for rest and inspiration. And Alannah's first hit record is about another singer's childhood home, the American South, home of the man who grew up to become the king of rock and roll. Here's Alannah Myles at number 26 on Casey's Top 40 with her tribute to Elvis Presley, Black Velvet. Sliding 15 notches to number 26. That's Alannah Myles and her former top 10, Black Velvet.
Casey's Top 40.
Radio plays them, Radio and Records ranks them, and we count them down on Casey's Top 40. Well, while the partners were practicing rhyme and rhythm in New York City, Alannah Myles was studying rock and roll in Toronto, Canada. As a child, she used to accompany herself on an old guitar, and she loved listening to great singers like Joni Mitchell and Joan Baez. And as we all know, the song that gave Alannah her first top 40 hit is about another great singer, Elvis Presley. Slipping 10 notches to number 39, Alannah does Black Velvet. That's Alannah Myles with a song that's in the top 10 right now in England. 4 weeks ago, it was also top 10 right here on Casey's Top 40.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. We've got 4 new songs in this week's survey, and that means we got to say goodbye to 4 old ones. Now, we're up to the latest hit for singer Alannah Myles and the story of how she was inspired by some great advice from Bruce Springsteen. It happened several years ago when Alannah was trying to launch her singing career in her hometown of Toronto, Canada. One cold, wintry night, she squeezed her way into a packed nightclub to see an aspiring rock band whose name she doesn't even remember anymore. The place was so packed that the only seat she could find was at someone else's table. And to make matters worse, the one open seat at that table was behind a pillar, and the seat was facing away from the stage. The only way she could see the band was by twisting her body like a pretzel and looking around the pillar. But Alannah sat down and started to enjoy the music. And later, when she turned to make small talk with the man who was already sitting at the table, her heart stopped. Her jaw dropped wide open. Sitting right across from her, so close she could touch him, was the man who had been her musical idol for as long as she could remember, the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen. Well, because of the awkward way her seat was placed, when she wasn't watching the stage, Alannah had no choice but to look straight into the eyes of Bruce. This was an amazing opportunity. She could actually speak to her idol. But she had no idea of what to say, and she was frightened that she'd come out with something dumb. So she sat there through the whole show right across a small table from Bruce and didn't say a word. But then he got up to leave, and Alannah knew it was now or never. So she screwed up her courage and said to him, "Mr. Springsteen, I want to be a singer. How can I do it?" Alannah says he looked at her for a moment, smiled, and gave her the perfect answer. Don't stop dreaming. Don't ever give up. Alannah says she took that advice from her idol Bruce Springsteen to heart. Through years of ups and downs, she held on tight to her dreams, and eventually it all paid off. After becoming a star in Canada earlier this year, Alannah Myles finally made it to the top 40 in the U.S. for the first time with her smash Black Velvet. Now, Alannah's back and moving up 5 notches to number 30 this week on Casey's Top 40 with Love Is. From the album Alannah Myles, that's the singer Alannah Myles climbing 5 notches to number 30 with Love Is.
Casey's Coast to Coast.